Welcome to the closing ceremony of EXA 2026 Oulu Conference. I feel like it was just Tuesday that we had the opening words. Okay, so we're going to try and keep this as unawkward as possible. And we will have some words later on, but we're going to begin now with our closing keynote speaker. And with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to her and introduce her to you. Our closing keynote speaker, Eliza Reid. Eliza is a best-selling writer, public speaker, gender equality advocate, co-founder of the acclaimed Iceland Writers' Retreat, and the former First Lady of Iceland. Originally from Canada, she's lived in Iceland for more than 20 years and has become one of the country's most visible voices on gender equality, storytelling, and social change. Her first book, Secrets of the Spraker, Iceland's Extraordinary Women and How They Are Changing the World, was a bestseller in both Canada and Iceland, selected as a New York Times Book Review editor's pick, and translated into numerous languages. Her debut novel, the Iceland-set mystery Death on the Island, published in the UK as Death of a Diplomat, was also an instant bestseller and has already been optioned for TV. From 2016 to 2024, Eliza served in the unofficial role of First Lady while her husband was President of Iceland. During that time, she championed numerous causes, served as patron to several organizations, and was appointed a United Nations Special Ambassador for Tourism and the Sustainable Development Goals. Eliza continues to speak around the world on gender equality, leadership, and how to make meaningful impact, even when you are not the one formally in charge. In fact, she will be speaking tomorrow in our roundtable discussion, What is Your North, at 2 p.m. in downtown Oulu at the restaurant Tuba on some of these topics. Don't look surprised. Her memoir, The First Lady Next Door, a memoir of Iceland identity and unexpected adventure, will be published this spring. I have known Eliza for 20-something years, and she is a dear friend and a real inspiration, and I feel so lucky that she has agreed to come here today so that we can share her with all of you. Please join me in warmly welcoming Eliza Reid.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Excellent. We're gonna move. You can hear me okay? Should I just move everybody's good and had a good time? I'm really excited to be here speaking with you today, and it's always especially fun to deliver remarks on the final day of a conference immediately after lunch, because you're all awake and alert. How many of you speak Icelandic? Frábært. Íslendingur? Okay, but excellent. But the word vatn means water in Icelandic, just to give you a little introduction there. And the reference of that title there alludes to imposter syndrome, although I hear that you had an actual fish out of water yesterday at the conference in an artistic display. But it's this idea of wanting to contribute, maybe feeling intimidated about doing so, and learning to trust that what one has to say is worth stepping forward for. Anyone from Canada here? You gotcha. Not you, who I know. Okay. This is, if anyone has been to Newfoundland, this is a ceremony in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador in Canada where you become an honorary Newfoundlander by kissing a frozen fish. And that is what that's from. But you know, here I am speaking at the Citizen Science Conference, and I do confess that when Roger asked me to come and speak, I was a little bit intimidated by speaking at an event with the word science in the title. But if there's anything that I've learned in life, it really is that you have to lean into all uncomfortable feelings. And so, another confession for you. I hadn't actually heard of citizen science before I was asked to come and speak at this conference, even though as soon as I researched it and learned more about it, I realized that of course I had heard of what you're doing, just not in that sort of context. And then after doing that and speaking to some of you, I realized the connections between what you're doing and what I've been doing, which is kind of working in environments more or less without rules, that we can kind of relate to each other in terms of having to push against established norms. And I'm really grateful to have met many of you. And I want to give a special shout out to the team from Slovenia, who I met at dinner last night. I feel like this talk has a little bit of citizen science in it as well, because they made some great contributions to it too. And I think that's all about sharing contributions. Now, as you heard, or may know, I am a very proud Canadian, but I have built my adult life in a storytelling nation. Iceland is known as the Sögueyja, or the island of the sagas and the stories. So, settle in, because this is a storytelling talk. And I'm joining you here today to share with you my own very unexpected story, which is my journey from small town Canada to spouse of a head of state of another country, and what I think that unexpected experience teaches us about the importance of choosing to engage, of challenging assumptions, and, as my talk is called, of stepping forward. Now, this talk involves a lot of hard work. This is me trying to look scientific. A big slice of luck, and maybe even a bigger dash of fairy tale. But I own no tiara, and I still did it. But really, all of our lives are just a series of adventures and stories, aren't they? They add to our understanding of the world, and they contribute to a toolbox of experiences that help us navigate changes in our lives later on. And I like to think of this toolbox as a sort of unwritten rule book for life. But what the tools have taught me is that with ordinary upbringings, we can still do extraordinary things and have extraordinary adventures. And from what I've been learning about citizen science, these unwritten rules and tools are also important, because so many of you are making valuable contributions to society without necessarily having clearly defined parameters. Now, if, like me, you're a rule follower, that can be intimidating. But also remember that some of the most important ingredients to making the best discoveries are simply curiosity, adaptability, and persistence. Now, one of the first rules I learned about life was imparted to me by both my earliest teachers and from my parents. And that was simply to follow the rules, to read the manual. And a confession for you, I'm the kind of person who reads the manual even today for everything that I buy, from the toaster to the kettle. This is me in red on my first day of school, which I was on time for because I did a trial run of the 5-minute walk to school so that my perennially tardy mother could be told exactly what time I needed to wake up and what time we needed to leave. I was, of course, concerned that if I were late on the very first day of my formal education, that blasé attitude might follow me my entire academic career. And so the rule was that school started at 8:45 a.m., and I would be there well before that. And ever since then, I have liked to follow the rules, to know the lane in which I'm meant to drive. Now we'll fast forward to undergrad at the University of Toronto. I went to university before the age of cell phones, and this is the only shareable photo that I could find from my university years, even though it's not classic, to tell you a very short story about perseverance and a rule for life that I learned then. Now, at university, I tried to do something called debating at the Literary Institute, which sounds very fancy and was one of the oldest ones in Canada, but it wasn't really that fancy, and there was free beer, and that's why I went all the time. But it was lighthearted, and you were meant to be funny and witty. And when I had been an elementary school student, I had won the class competition for my speech on Halley's Comet in French, and so I figured to do a talk or debate in my native language would be no problem. And on this occasion, though, I only had 10 minutes to prepare my remarks. And again, I figured because they're all drinking free beer, my speech would be more entertaining for everyone. And I went up to do it, and I bombed. I wasn't funny. I didn't have a cogent argument. I stammered, and I stuttered. I blushed, and I showed my nerves. And even though I could tell pretty much immediately that I was a flop, I had to keep at it for 5 agonizing minutes. Now, no one laughed outright at me, and no one came up and teased me afterwards. I couldn't feel people whispering and pointing behind my back. So maybe I wasn't as bad as I thought. But that moment is seared in my mind, when all I wanted was for the ground to swallow me whole. And that, too, became the source of a new rule. You need to get back on the horse. At the time, I at least consoled myself by the fact that I figured I'd never have to do off-the-cuff speeches in public ever again. And I had been learning some rules to help me in adulthood. But sometimes you come across a bend in the road, and sometimes you need to kind of bend the rules you've learned just a little bit. Wait and see. Now, I finished that degree, excuse me a second, with no more abysmal speeches, and so at 22, I moved to England to take a 1-year master's degree at Oxford University. This is also the only shareable photo that I have for you from those years. Now, there were a lot of Canadians at Oxford, but people kept talking about this one guy from Iceland. And all I knew about Iceland was that its capital city was Reykjavik, because when I was growing up in the 1980s, I played a lot of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego on a borrowed Commodore 64. Now, this Icelander and I would talk every now and then, and I got to know a man who was smart, kind, and very funny. Now, one day, imagine this, at a university, there was a party. It was a fundraiser for the rowing crew, which also sounds super fancy, except that we were horrible rowers, and we just thought that's the kind of thing you're supposed to do when you're studying at Oxford. But here's how the fundraiser worked. This is the point. Now, members of the team, mostly men, if I recall correctly, they each had this one paper cup, and they would mark them with their name on it. And we party attendees, we could pay £1 for 5 small paper tickets, which we would mark with our own names. And then we distribute the tickets as we wished between the different cups, except I don't know how to animate that in PowerPoint. You can imagine it. At the end of the evening, the men would draw one name out of each cup and have to take that person out for a meal. So now, actually, come to think of it, there was a rule that I had learned that came into play at that moment. Seize the day. I had a £2 coin, and so I bought 10 tickets, and I put 8 of them in Goodney's cup. And I didn't put them all in because stalker, if you found out. But I figured 8 would greatly increase the odds of winning a date with him, and beyond that, I figured I couldn't possibly be committing myself to anything too long-term, could I? I think you know how this goes. Gudny drew my name, and while many other students enjoyed a kebab outside the college gates, he took me to a 3-course Italian meal at Luna Capresi's with a bottle of red wine and all. Now, I didn't know whether that meant that he was interested in me or whether this was just what all Icelandic men were like. But soon we were an honest-to-goodness couple, and if any of you have been to Iceland, you might recognize the Jökulsárlón glacial lagoon pre-tourist boom days. And eventually, in the following years, he finished his doctorate degree in history, and I began working. We moved in together, and then we got engaged after I proposed to him on a weekend trip to Cornwall in southwest England. And we left England in the spring of 2003, ready to build a life for ourselves in Iceland. But since I was moving to a new country, where I didn't have a job and I didn't speak the language, besides memorizing the phrase, "Einhver hefur stolið vegabréfinu mínu," which means, someone has stolen my passport, from my CD-ROM, I thought perhaps it would best to be broke too, and also use the chance to trust in the kindness of strangers. So as my new fiancé headed to Reykjavik to begin his postdoctoral research grant and find us a place to live, I used all my meager savings and flew to Moscow to begin a 100-day solo backpacking trip that included the Trans-Siberian train, Mongolia, and Southeast Asia. And that, of course, was an unforgettable experience. And trust in the kindness of strangers, I did. In Samarkand, this ancient city in Uzbekistan that was famous as a stop on this fabled Silk Road, I met a woman named Mohabbat who ran a souvenir shop who, using very limited English and my Russian phrasebook, invited me to her home for dinner. And that evening, in a gray Soviet-era apartment block in the suburbs of the city, I ate cabbage with dill, lamb plov, and many other foods, sitting on the floor with her and her husband and their 4 sons. After dinner, he brought out the vodka, and we began to toast the future, including, once they found out I was soon to be married, my many sons. Stay tuned. Weeks later, I found myself on a train from Japan's Narita Airport to central Tokyo, well after midnight, due to flight delays. My plan was to spend the night at an internet cafe and then find some sort of hostel to stay in. Tokyo was notoriously safe, and I was too frugal, cheap, to spend money on a night of accommodation that I would only be used for a few hours. Once again, a stranger came to my rescue. A young Japanese woman my age began speaking with me and invited me to stay in her dorm room. "I'm not allowed guests," she confided, "but I'll sneak you in." Shizuru was a wonderful host. This is her with her friend Yayoi in the middle. And we exchanged email addresses, although I wasn't sure when, if ever, I would ever return to Tokyo or Japan. My faith in humanity by that trip, I flew to Iceland in August 2003 to begin a new life just south of the Arctic Circle. I had moved to the country for love, but I wanted to stay for me, to establish my own raison d'etre for a happy and fulfilling life in Iceland. And I called upon another rule I had learned over the years. I signed up for an Icelandic class, and then another. I got a job. We bought an apartment. Here it is, futon and all. And at 27, I had my first mortgage. I got laid off from my job. I took a third Icelandic class. I started doing freelance writing work, which became busy enough to become full-time freelance writing work. And eventually, I was editing Icelander's in-flight magazine, and I co-founded an annual event called the Iceland Writers Retreat, which we're hosting for the 12th time next month. On the home front, Gluni and I got married, and then we moved into this cute 110 square meter home in Vesturbærin, the old part of town. And I became an Icelandic citizen. And we had 4 children at 2-year intervals, with 3 boys, thank you, Central Asian Toast, and a girl to add to Gluni's older daughter from his first marriage. And if any of you has children, you know that these are kind of the only kinds of photos you can get with multiple children, putting them in front of the TV, and one clearly being very upset that he is no longer the baby of the family. Life was pretty great. It was tiring, yes. I didn't have time for things like vacations or non-grocery shopping, much less a full night's sleep. But we had a wonderful, energetic family and fulfilling work, me writing and leading the Writers' Retreat, and Gluni as an associate professor of history at the University of Iceland. And finally, we thought that 110 square meters for a 6-person family was perhaps a little bit small for our growing brood. And in 2015, we moved to this larger fixer-upper house. After all that chaos and stress of moving, we finally unpacked the last box and unofficially declared that we would never move again, or at least not for a very, very long time. We could settle down into our fulfilling but very ordinary existence. Then, a mere 10 months later, in 2016, came the Panama Papers scandal. Anyone remember Panama Papers? This was the global scoop coordinated by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which included a team from Iceland's national broadcaster, a show aired that identified world leaders who had funds kept in offshore tax havens. The leak implicated Iceland's prime minister at the time. We have both a prime minister and a president in Iceland. And my husband Guðni, who was by now history professor at the University of Iceland, was the pundit called on television to analyze the crisis. He was writing a book on the presidents of Iceland and was an expert on the country's constitution, so he could put the breaking political story in context. There was this ongoing presidential election at the same time, and people saw this smart and nonpartisan person on their screens, and they literally started calling our house, encouraging him to consider seeking elected office for the first time ever. Now, I love rules, and all of a sudden, there were no rules. And Guðni announced his candidacy for president of Iceland on the 5th of May 2016, less than a year after we had been in that new house, and just over 1 month after the Panama Papers scandal broke. In his speech, he struck an optimistic tone and said, "There's nothing to fear. Of course, we do not know what the future will bring, but therein lies the beauty in life's uncertainty." And after a 7-week campaign, this happened. Guðni took office as my adopted country's 6th president on the 1st of August 2016, and I became the nation's forsetafrú, or literally, president's wife. Now, my life had taken a huge turn, and certainly an unexpected one. So what would I do with this unique and wonderful opportunity? And more importantly, I wondered what I was allowed to do with it. Because unlike for guaranteed success with my toaster or my blender, there was no manual I could study. I was a fish out of vatn. So I would need to create the rules as I went along and hope that I was quick enough off the mark to make the most of it all. I was going to need to be better than that try at the debating society at university when I bombed. Now, one of my challenges was to figure out exactly what a First Lady was. And I've added this photo for you of me with the former First Lady of Finland, for those of you who may recognize her, who became a good friend. There is no official role for the spouse of a head of state in Iceland, which is the same for many, but not all countries. There is no dedicated office or staff. Now, probably like most of you, I had seen photos of famous spouses over the years. And I wasn't really sure what they did, but they often seem to have been assigned the informal task of sort of softening their husbands or tackling issues that were somehow feminine in nature. Now, certainly at the time, if reading about spouses such as Brigitte Macron and Sophie Grégoire-Trudeau was anything to go by, if you tried to do more, then you would be criticized for straying from your lane. But if you didn't do enough, if you didn't fulfill the role well enough, you'd be criticized too. Now, how would I, an immigrant first lady in a progressively minded country, a feminist in an anti-feminist voluntary role, fit in? Was I allowed to speak up about gender equality, a topic I'm passionate about, if the only reason I had a platform in the first place was because of something my husband had achieved? Well, spoiler alert, I got over that. And I gradually realized that if there is no rule book, then you can't be breaking any rules. What I just needed to do was make the most of that unexpected opportunity I had been afforded, to use the platform I was so fortunate to have to try to nudge things in the right direction, to leave the world a bit better after 8 years, to draw attention to important issues. Now, I can't say that things were clear-cut from the outset, but I think I did have this point of view if some of the early interviews are anything to go by. Those are some quotes from them. But while I was trying to be an active First Lady, what had happened to Eliza? I was now someone's wife, the forsetafrú, or First Lady, as if I were some sort of genteel sidekick. I happily joined Guðni to host receptions at the presidential residence, to travel around the country on official visits, to attend sporting matches and cultural events. But people rarely ask me how my work was going in the way that they used to, and I assumed the assumption that I had stopped work since my husband had got a new job. Instead, I was asked about what I was wearing, how the children were adjusting to the new situation, or if I were abroad alone, who was looking after them in my absence. Now, I'm very proud to be Glynne's wife, but I wouldn't say that it's my defining characteristic as a human, and it took some getting used to being someone in the public eye. Now, one of the most superficial but challenging things was clothing and appearance, which is not my strong suit. This photo, for example, was taken after 2 hours of makeup and fake hair. Now, at the risk of sounding naive, I think that if you feel good, you look good. Well, apparently you also make statements, intentionally or not, with your sartorial choices. And I had a steep hill to climb. Here's a quick sub-story. Early on, before my husband had even publicly announced that he was running, during all that Panama Papers chaos, a stylist called my home in preparation for the election flyer that we would need to print if he even decided he was going to run. "How would you describe your personal style?" he asked me, as I wedged my phone to the shoulder, changed a dirty diaper, and used my last available resource, arched eyebrows and a stern look, to signal to my toddler that the television was on too loud. "Well, I haven't bought a new pair of shoes in 5 years, and my maternity pants still fit very well," I answered in a distracted tone. So I invited the stylist to come by and meet me. Maybe he could glean a signature look from my worn jeans and 80s hair clips. But 5 minutes after he appeared at the door, 6-year-old Donnie bellowed down the hall, "Mom, come quickly, there's blood everywhere." And I raced to him, where I discovered his younger brother, Scythor, nearly hyperventilating, a big gash under his lip from a softball bat poorly swung by a playmate. Again, parents will be familiar with these things. In the end, the photo shoot itself took place without incident, although it did take 8 hours to end up with this single happy family photo. Now, attention only increased once I became First Lady. Strangers approached me to tell me that I looked much nicer with my hair longer. Or journalists published the cost of items of clothing I had worn. When I lost an inexpensive earring on a state visit to Sweden, it briefly became front-page news, as apparently palace officials scrambled to find the lost item. Once, I got a very polite letter from a woman who told me how much she admired me, but that I should never wear the color green. And so I realized that this should be an opportunity. As Michelle Obama wrote in her memoir, Becoming, if reporters and television cameras wanted to follow me, then I was going to take them places. Here's a photo of me and my husband at the Icelandic version of the Academy Awards, and I'm wearing a jacket I bought at a secondhand charity shop for about $20. You'll see that the news got picked up by the BBC. And before I could say circular economy, I was reaping praise from strangers who had read about me and fielding calls from the Red Cross offering to set aside outfits to look at. So I began to dress in other second-hand clothing at high-profile events. When the German presidential couple arrived for a state visit, during which we wanted to highlight sustainability as a key theme, I wore a Red Cross dress and a borrowed white jacket. When Glynne was reelected in 2020, I wanted to wear a second-hand dress. And the one I found, this one, wasn't a perfect fit because the buttons along the front just gaped like a tiny bit. But beggars can't be choosers when it comes to second-hand clothing. So one of my colleagues sewed the bow of that dress across the front to help prevent any embarrassing photos. And at the end of the evening, I actually had to be cut out of the dress. And when I was abroad, I always tried to wear Icelandic design. But surely I thought the influence that I can have should be more about what I can say than what I was wearing. And so I began to speak, which is admittedly not that hard for me. It did take me a while to get started, though, because on our first state visit that we'd gone on, which was to Denmark, I had to Google how to curtsy. and I was worried that my gloves wouldn't match my handbag. But that was actually very little compared to all the work that dozens of others had put into making the trip a success. And I felt that I could do more. And so after that, I always spoke in some form or another on one of these trips. And that's where all these images you've seen come from. But of course, I also delivered talks in Iceland, dozens and dozens a year. And it was really, really fun, even though a lot of them ended up having to be off the cuff, just like I had dreaded back in university. But I'd also like to add that in Icelandic, of course, I speak with an accent. And it was equally important for me to remind people that newcomers to the language and the country also have valuable voices to contribute. And of course, there was plenty of self-doubt or imposter syndrome, whatever you want to call it. Were people going to complain about me? Would they say I was being an attention seeker? That I was straying from my lane? That really, I didn't belong? And generally, though, the feedback was positive, and year by year, I did more on my own. I visited Jordan and the Zaatari Syrian refugee camp to help with a UN Women fundraiser, spoke at an international conference on Alzheimer's research, and cheered on the national culinary team in Luxembourg and the national team at the Special Olympics in Berlin. Also in 2017, I was named the UN Special Ambassador for Tourism and the Sustainable Development Goals. And ultimately, Business Iceland hired me to promote Icelandic business abroad and tourism to Iceland. And all of this helped remind me that I could do more. I could really speak up. Now, this Instagram post was shared at a G7 meeting in, I think, 2019 it was. And if you can see, it's Donald Tusk, who was then European Council President, talks about this photo of the wives of various G7 leaders gazing out to sea, and he's commented the light side of the force. And I remember it really frustrated me so much, and I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, it's too bad I'm First Lady, or I would post about this on Facebook, which is what we do when we're very frustrated. But then I realized I didn't have a rule book, but what I did have was a blue-checked Facebook account, and no one to tell me what I could or couldn't put on it. And so I did post on Facebook. And that got a lot of attention. A friend said that I should pitch a story to the New York Times, and I thought, wow, I'd love to do that. But I'm the First Lady, and so I'm probably not allowed to write editorials in the New York Times. But I went for it anyway. And this piece was published in 2019, in which I wrote, "I'm not my husband's handbag, which he can grab as he runs out the door and display silently by his side during public appearances." It got some great feedback, and eventually I was inspired to write a book about it all, which let me talk Iceland and gender equality even more. Which reminds me, have I told you how much fun it was? It was an incredible, incredible adventure, and I feel so very fortunate to have experienced it. If any of it became commonplace, then I knew I was doing it wrong. Remember this woman that I met by chance on the late-night train in Tokyo over 2 decades ago? It turns out that I did go back to the city, but this time it was to attend the enthronement of the new emperor of Japan. But we went out for noodles again, and we had a great time. I actually even got to visit the White House once with my counterpart and attend a Women's History Month event. And at the end, when I was giving my farewells, the then president called my mom in Ottawa to see how she was doing. And if you look closely at that photo, you can see Mom's cell on my phone. Mom took it all in her stride, answering calmly as if it were the neighbor calling to borrow brown sugar. And she even complimented the president on achieving gender parity in his cabinet. "It's about time," she said, as if reading from talking points. In March 22, I traveled to London for the launch of my book, and I was honored to be asked to deliver remarks at an International Women's Day event at the Canadian High Commission. And in that speech, I said something that I think is more relevant than ever. We are interconnected as never before. And if I may add, especially in the current climate, which was right after Russia's invasion of Ukraine 4 years ago, but I feel it applies today, we bear a responsibility as never before to be role models, to use our voices, to fight for what is right, to speak up about injustice, to elevate the voices of those who cannot, to be vigilant in fighting for a more equitable world. And I really tried to live by that, not just in Iceland, but also abroad. To build my network so that it could also help Iceland to share our stories of gender equality success. This was at an International Women's Day event. To exercise soft power. This is a First Ladies and Gentlemen platform. And it all stretched my comfort zone. But it's only by leaning into that uncomfortable feeling that we can grow as people. And of course, it was going to come to an end. Now, there are no term limits in Iceland, and he had an approval rating that was consistently over 80%. Don't tell him I said that because he's very modest. My husband chose not to seek re-election in 2024, opting instead to leave on a high. Now, as you can see, I am clearly still very young. And I want to build on that experience in the role, expand my networks, continue to nudge things in the right direction. I got a taste for the high of feeling like something I do can maybe make a difference, to feel comfortable about working within undefined parameters. I suspect a lot like what it does for you to work in citizen science. So what did this farm girl from Canada learn from serving in this unexpected role? And the experience, I know it sounds like a cliche, actually made me more of an optimist. Because I got to glimpse, in the most ordinary ways possible, the best of humanity. Of course, there was, big picture stuff like awards for bravery or sporting records, artistic accolades or grand openings. But what really sticks with me are the everyday acts of people of all ages, genders, backgrounds, and abilities who were slowly but surely, without even probably trying to do so, making their communities, our society, and our world a better place. People just like you. And that is kind of exactly what all of you are doing here now. I know it's nice to see old friends, it's nice to make new ones, it's important to relax, to have some fun, to get to know a new place, a European capital of culture, no less. But you are also giving your time and your energy to professional development, to contributing to a diverse field of knowledge, one in which you have had to create some of the definitions and rules for yourselves. You're enriching existing bonds and forging new ties that will help you all in your roles going forward, enabling you to do your jobs better, to inspire others with your work and initiatives in citizen science. Your involvement, your agency in these diverse fields inspires us all and reminds me, and I hope each other, that we all have a role to play, that we are all role models. You remind me that no matter your job title or your budgets or the team you're working with, you can still have a positive and lasting impact on the world around you. We can all stand to improve our compassion, tolerance, and understanding of the different challenges people face and how each of us, public figure or not, can help to alleviate them. After a lifetime of keeping lists and craving a manual, perhaps most of all I realized that simply from living my life, from listening to my teachers, my parents, from listening to others, from showing curiosity and persistence, I had accumulated many of the tools that I would need to be a success in an unexpected role. I realized that we all have the tools to make the most of what life throws at us. And I remain deeply grateful for letting the unexpected lead me on a wonderful adventure. Now, my family taught me a valuable lesson from the outset. My life has given me more. As an ordinary woman in an ordinary role, I picked up some more lessons. Now, this is all well and good, but you'll see it's 9 rules, and I don't really like 9 rules for my structured personality. So Let me see if I can come up with one more at the end. If there is just one message you take away from this talk, I would like it to be this. To paraphrase my husband's first speech as a political candidate, and I recognize the irony of quoting my husband, my own speech. He is a good writer, though. There can be beauty in life's uncertainty, in the feeling of being an outsider. What happened to me was kind of as likely as if it happened to any of you. After all, I'm just an ordinary person who found herself in an extraordinary position. And when we face a bend in the road, we need to find the courage within ourselves to embrace it and make the most of it. We will all, blessedly, have different passions and interests and challenges we want to help others overcome. But just remember, you will make a difference if you put your mind to it. And if you don't lose sight of those goals, even when they seem nebulous to you. Your job is to confound expectations. I know you can do it. I know you are doing it. Thank you. Tak. Enjoy the day. I think it's a little awkward having someone you've known for a long time moderate the questions.
Why?
Okay.
Thank you, Eliza, for sharing your story with us and for finding, I think, concrete links to not just to citizen science practice and to kind of community engagement, which I think Iceland probably has a lot to sort of educate on and share about, but also to sort of share a lot of what it can mean to be human these days. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank all of you. My husband calls me Analyza sometimes because as soon as I finish doing something, I start like replaying it in my mind and finding all the mistakes or differences. And so I started to do that. And I was thinking, I hope that I thanked all of you enough for all of this different work because it was really fun last night and being here to talk about all these different projects in which which you have so much passion for and making such a contribution. Thank you all.
Doesn't work. Yeah. We have some time for questions for the audience. We have some roving microphones. So I would like to invite anyone out there today to raise their hand and respond, comment, query, critique.
No critique, thank you.
No critique, sorry. That's
Keep that. Just talk to me afterwards.
I always have something to say. First of all, thank you very much for sharing your story, and I applaud you for creating your own lane. I think it's a wonderful thing to spread to others. I'm curious. I imagine that we saw the story from your perspective, and I'm wondering what it was like for your husband and whether that ever created a kind of a tension or opportunities for mutual growth and what that dynamic was like.
I think I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of my husband or what he thinks, and he's a very private person, so I'm always very conscious to keep his own, to let him express his own opinions on everything. But he's a very supportive individual. I wouldn't have been married to someone who wouldn't have encouraged, even though when we got married, we didn't know what would happen. But I don't think that would have been someone I would have been married to, who wouldn't want to encourage me to pursue what I wanted to pursue at the same time, yeah. And also we tried never to talk about work after 6 p.m. Sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't work.
Thank you very much for your sharing your story with us. I was wondering if you thought that you had made a precedent, so if from then on things have changed for the wives of these very notorious and important men.
This is a really excellent question, and it has sort of a nuanced answer, because for me personally, I wanted to make the most of it, and that involved using my voice and confounding expectations and all of that. But because there is no formal role, spouse of a head of state, I feel very important that just because I chose to do it in one way doesn't mean that people in after me have to do it that way. If they want to not be involved at all, then I think that should be their prerogative. And I think if a spouse has to, rather than do certain things, then they should be paid. And that obviously brings up a whole lot of other questions. So I would say within Iceland, I did certainly get a reputation for being very active and vocal and involved, and I think that was very well received overall. But I wouldn't. I always think that because it's an undefined role, people should be able to see it how they do. I spoke a lot with other spouses of other countries about this, because it's always a little bit different dynamics in different places. A great many of them also faced similar challenges. And now in Iceland, we have for the first time a first gentleman. And so that brings, its own sort of perceptions and ideas, because I have this feeling that if you're super, super vocal and active as a man, you also might face criticism that you're trying to take over the shadow of the more important role, right? Which is the role of the president. So, so there's always different dynamics at state.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It was a really inspiring talk. I wondered if you're inspired to run for a political leadership role, and I think you'd be really good at it. I don't know if you'd be eligible in Iceland if you're not born there, but perhaps Canada.
Are you saying for running for? I am eligible in Iceland, and I bear a tremendous admiration for people who go into public service. I think it's honorable, and maybe that's a minority opinion these days, I don't know, but I think it's very honorable to go into public service, very important, especially now when there's such negative connotations without it. So I think we really need people who are willing to engage and dialogue and meet other people. And I find it all fascinating. I don't have any immediate plan, could you imagine? And I've decided now to announce since you've asked, I don't have any immediate plans to do anything, but if there's anything that this story has taught me, it's that I don't know what's going to happen in 2 months. So who knows? But thank you for that question. I do think, hopefully my story shows, and that's what I hope shows, that, very few people, I want to encourage anybody who wants to run for public office to do so. Relatively few people end up holding elected office, and that doesn't abrogate responsibility from the rest of us to be leaders and positive role models and try to nudge things in the right direction just within our own circles. And that's something that I think is incredibly important, is to say that you don't need to have a staff, you don't need to have the budget, you don't need to have the chain of office physically or metaphorically in order to try to use your voice and have that positive influence.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. I personally thought you looked fabulous in green, so...
Thank you. I like that dress too. Thank you.
I thought that was great. One thing I wanted to ask is, you were speaking about you being an ordinary person and an ordinary perspective starting out in an extraordinary situation. And after being at the Citizen Science Conference here, what would you like to see for Icelandic people and mobilizing them? Is there anything that you could see for citizen science and, I don't know, something that you would envision for the people of Iceland?
Well, that's a really terrific question, and I think I don't know if you're looking for really specific examples. I'm going to give you a kind of generic answer that's not specific, but I think that the one, I confessed at the beginning that I hadn't heard of citizen science in that sense. But one of the wonderful things that I sense about it now is how varied it is, right? It's a scary but a positive thing that some senses are ill-defined. And it's that, I think, is an empowering thing, because it means that you don't need to have certain letters after your name, or you don't need to have the specific experience. And Iceland is wonderful for that, because we have a small population, not quite 400,000 people. And so you always have to wear lots of different hats. It's a wonderful thing about the country, actually, that people don't say, well, you haven't worked in this field for 30 years and therefore, you can't do this. I think it's both a matter of doing this important work and then sharing the results of that work, which is, I think, maybe as somebody who comes from outside of that, is an area where we could look more to it in Iceland, not only because that data and that information for global knowledge is very important, but also because it inspires other people to think, wow, if this group did this and achieved this because they have this specific passion, then I can follow my passion and do that. And that is a very powerful thing, I think. So I think in Iceland, we're small, so we can get the word out about things. I wish there were more people from, is there anyone from Iceland here? No, there's one person who speaks Icelandic. Anyway, we'll get more people in Iceland.
I think we had a quota of one.
Which gives us maybe per capita the most people. Except for my friends from Slovenia, because there's so many of you, and Slovenia is not massively big. I guess it is 10 times bigger than Iceland. Anyway, here we go.
Yeah, so it's a question about scale and kind of power and scale. So as you said, it's from a small country. And for example, I have a friend who is a professor of transport study in Malta. And she set up the traffic calming scheme in Valletta, which is the capital. And then the rest of the world contact her because she actually does traffic calming program in the capital city. So did you have any experience like that of people misscaling?
So Iceland is great. I mean, my role when I was First Lady wasn't to sort of spearhead certain initiatives, more that, you would speak at events. But in terms of Iceland, it is a great, like Malta in that sense, it's like a test case. Because as you say, it's easy to say, we became the best-selling product in this, or we proved Y concept. And for innovation, entrepreneurship, all these kinds of initiatives, that's a really great way to do it. And I often say with Iceland that, you can't be the best in everything, but you can really set an example in certain niche fields. In Iceland, we're a global leader in our use of geothermal technologies. In innovation in that sense, and sustainability, in gender equality, in peace. Can you be a global leader in peace? We're the world's most peaceful country. But there's different things that you can do, as I said, in a small nation. I feel like in this town in Iceland, Ísafjörður, there was these traffic calming, like they just painted it differently. Was that from the Maltese initiative? Yeah, it was very cool. Anyway, I think we should give Malta credit. We'll do that.
Well, thank you, Eliza, for your talk. In the beginning of your talk, you said that one of the most important things that you learned was to lean into discomfort. Now, discomfort may present itself in all kinds of forms, but sometimes it presents itself as death, disease, or disaster. Now, leaning into that kind of discomfort is very uncomfortable, yet I feel it's important, and especially in these times that so many things are changing, lots of uncertainties felt everywhere in board. No, I don't need to name that. So would you mind to reflect a bit on our individual and collective challenge to deal with those kinds of uncomfortable situations and pain?
I think, discomfort, which is that line between not being so used to something that we're complacent, we don't really care, we're not emotionally invested in something, which means we're not growing as people, versus being so paralyzed with fear that we can't move. That the big sway in between of discomfort is the sweet spot, I think, because then we're growing as people, then we're kind of testing ourselves. We may not succeed, we may not do well. I think what happens in a global context, when we have that uncomfortable feeling, not necessarily about our own actions, but about the world and what's happening, because we feel like we don't have control over so many of the things that are going on around us, that can almost freeze us into complacency. It can mean that we feel that uncomfortable discomfort without any power of how to alleviate it, because we feel like we as individuals can't make a difference. And I think that we felt this way before with pandemic, with the climate crisis, with all of these things, that when the world swirls around us, it is sometimes much easier to feel like, well, I'm just going to hide under the piano until everything stops swirling, because there's too much. I'm frozen. There's too many things going on, too many violations to mention. But that I cannot immobilize us into complacency, because when most people are complacent, that's when all the worst stuff happens. And we can't have what I call this trickle-down effect, where we think, well, I'm going to be engaged in my society and my environment because I vote for people. And if the person I like wins, or the person I like doesn't win, then I've kind of done my part, but that's all I can do. Because the vast majority of us aren't those people. And those people do have more power in many senses than we do. But that doesn't mean that we can't make a difference in this field. And I have this little story of my mom, the one who congratulated Joe Biden for having gender parity on her cabinet. And my mom is not a political person. She's not an activist, she's not an attention seeker. She's a housewife on the farm just outside of Ottawa, where I grew up. And in the pandemic, she just decided to do this thing where she decided she wanted to do something positive for someone every day. And maybe that was calling a neighbor that she hadn't heard from, or maybe it was baking a pie at the local church, or maybe it was, being extra nice to help carry someone's groceries somewhere. It didn't matter what it was. One single thing a day. And she's not trying to change the world or be an activist or shift politics. But I think the positive effect, without trying to sound cheesy or woo-woo or anything, can really make a difference. Not just for that one person, but that kind of ripple effect. If everybody in this room did one positive thing today that's as simple as that, or maybe bigger, that would be pretty cool. And I think reminds us and galvanizes us to know that, look, you don't have to change the world. Most of us aren't going to change the world, but all of us can do our part to nudge things in the right direction. And it's incredibly important. Yes, it's important to look after ourselves when we are tired or we feel overwhelmed. That's when you get into that discomfort, like unhealthy discomfort feeling. But when we just feel like we have this energy and it's all kind of happening, we don't have control over it, we just need to try to grab hold of like a tiny little thing in some way or another to feel that we can make that difference. And I think that's really important.
We have time for one or two more questions. First the woman standing up and then yourself sitting down. Sorry, there's someone behind. Go ahead.
Hello. In your youth, as you are right now, I assume that your children are probably on the verge or emerging into the world on their own, similar to myself, my own children, and maybe even others who are looking at career changes or going from a bachelor's to master's and so forth. And what kind of advice do you give your children? What kind of advice would you give those who are job seeking right now in the economy that is not just here in Europe or the United States or anywhere, it's everywhere, as well as those who are pursuing education? What would you tell those who are struggling to see or have hope in that future, the youth?
The future of you. It's a great question. And you're right, with those photos. Most of my children are taller than me now. And those, I just don't share new photos sort of out of respect for their privacy, that I, choose those couple of photos, and those are the only ones that we ever share. But you're right. I've been very fortunate that I get to speak to different groups in different places. And every time I go and I meet young people, it really gives me a great boost, because a lot of people want to do a lot of things. And I think, that's how we change the world, is everybody who believes that we will change the world tomorrow. And I think that's wonderful. I think it's like a balance with my own kids too, that I say times have shifted a little bit, that probably more in my parents' generation, when you got a job, that's the job you did for 50 years. And if I'm able to, I want them to work hard. I want them to, maybe show some ambition, but not to be fixed, to think at a certain age, I have to know exactly what I want to do. I have to know what I want to study. It has to fit into some kind of niche of what I'm expected to do for my socioeconomic class or something. And obviously this shows, this level of privilege, that they have this kind of comfort zone with a supportive family, right? That if they are slower to finish school, or they change their minds, or they don't quite find their way, or, they still have, as we say in Iceland, a hotel mama sometimes that they, might be at home at. To me, with my family, the biggest thing as a parent that I do is to love your children, and to try to respect, be encouraging, but allow them to choose their own paths, and be supportive of them. But I have a lot of belief in what's going on. I try to ask them a lot, which they don't like, of, what's going on? What have you heard? Because I'm super hip mom. And, I think that's important. And trying, because I have, 3 boys and then a girl, or I guess they're kind of young men now. It's also, as a feminist, very important for me to raise them to be kind of respectful, kind men. I think we've been very good about, just to veer off in terms of feminism a little bit, but I think we've very often been very good about teaching our girls to be strong and independent and do what they want. And we somehow haven't necessarily broadened the definition of what men are supposed to do, of what constitutes a real man. And I think we need to widen that range a little bit, and just also, as I said, sort of teach them kindness and respect. I've said to them since they were very young that they will always have spaces like the proverbial locker room that I will never have access to. And when they are exposed to attitudes, behaviors, comments, all of these kinds of things, that they need to have the courage to stand up and say that it's not okay. And I wouldn't have had the courage to do any of those things when I was 12 or 13, but I hope to try to say that, because I think anybody who is the target of different things, can be one person doing it, but you feel like it's everybody against you. And so that's something that I try to teach my children as well. But I think, just love them is the main thing.
Another question? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for your talk. It was very inspiring, and you made the perfect hook to what I wanted to say, because you said various things about your mother not being political, or you were not talking to your husband about work after 6 p.m. But I would contest that, because, it's talking or wrapping one's head around gender equality and how you try to raise your boys and your daughter, that is so political. And your mom that was so political to talk to Biden like that, and every choice we make that is so political. So I don't see a boundary, and I'm happy that I think you also do not draw that boundary, because it's super difficult to be engaged in gender equality, be in a relationship, have children, and stop doing that after 6 p.m. That's
Well, it's an interesting observation. For me, more what I meant, yes, of course, you're always talking about these things. Political, to me, in some senses, I think people interpret it as a very kind of like partisan political thing, whereas I agree with you that politics infuses our lives, and it's kind of impossible to say we're not political. But I think it's very often interpreted if I say I am political, as in I follow all the parties or what they're doing. I agree with you in the other statement. And that same, informal rule about talking about work doesn't have to do with that, but more like, when finally the kids have gone to sleep and you're sitting down together and you open a bottle of wine and you say, like, are you also going to the conference tomorrow at noon? And did you pass me the speech? Like all the nitty gritty practicalities of a job. And I feel like, that's kind of a 24/7 thing if you live with the person that you're working with. So we try to minimize that sort of thing to varying degrees of success.
I think we are going to take the last question and then move on. Yes, Flora or Jan.
Hello, amazing speech, very inspirational. Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask, what does feminism mean to you?
Pardon me, I didn't hear.
What does feminism mean to you? And over the course of your career, what challenges have you faced when voicing for feminism, and what seems to be the biggest priority for us today?
Just a small question to wrap up I should be able to answer that in 2 words. Okay, what is feminism? And I'm middle-aged, so if I forget the end of your question, let me know before I do it. But what does feminism mean to be? I kind of love this question because I think it's a kind of question that allows a lot of different answers. Because feminism and feminist can be kind of heated words in many fields. I don't want it to be. I've always considered myself a feminist. To me, that's a positive word. It's a zero-sum word about elevating the playing field for everybody, not pushing one group against another group. It's not anti-man, obviously. I love men. I think, so to me, feminism is a positive, inspiring word about helping to create a better world for people of all genders. And it is about, leveling the playing field so that we all have the potential to live to our best potential. And, it's that sort of idea of sort of fundamental equality with everybody. I recognize that not everyone defines feminism in that way. And that's okay. When I wrote my book on the women of Iceland, I asked some of the women, are you a feminist? And they would have been giving answers that to me felt very feminist, but they would say, no, I'm not a feminist. I just like to do this. And, I'm not going to try to change people's mind. That's my definition of feminism. It's a positive word that should not be seen as something negative. It's not, to me, particularly political, although I appreciate that many people think that. And that's why, even though I served in certainly a non-partisan political role, it wasn't meant to be political, I often use the word feminist deliberately. You asked about what it is that we have to do. I could do a whole other talk on that. Of course, we're obviously facing a global backlash in gender equality in regions of the world where women's basic rights, health, safety, and security are under urgent threat. And it's very hard to summarize that, like globally speaking, obviously, when there's so many different countries that face that. If I look at it from the Icelandic point of view, where we're closest in the world to closing it, but we also still have a gap. One of the biggest things there and everywhere else is the epidemic of intimate partner violence and gender-based violence, because we can't be achieving equality while we have that. We have a high rate of that in Iceland as well, partially because of trust with institutions, so it's higher reported, and a broader definition of what constitutes this violence, which is a positive thing if you put it in that way. But that's one of the biggest things that we have to eradicate. We have to do that, well, there's many, many things in all of this sense. I think if I can summarize it in one thing, it is to emphasize that these things don't happen on their own. And working towards greater equality is a conscious choice. It doesn't happen on its own. you can work to take one step forward, and then you blink your eyes for a second, you take 5 steps back. And I think that our jobs is to convince everyone of why this is still important and why it needs to permeate all facets of our society in order to work towards it and to talk about it. And for people who don't like the word feminism, not to sort of scold or yell, but maybe to have a dialogue about that, so that people, to me, that shouldn't be a threatening word, to have a dialogue about whether or not people perceive that as a threatening word. And also because I think very often we get bogged down in the definitions, in the vocabulary of something, but really we're talking about the same thing in many senses. And I'm Canadian, so I'm going to say I'm sorry for a second, but I'm sorry, like, I'm going to give one like tiny anecdote. I do, in other remarks, often I talk about this day off that 90% of Iceland's women took in 1975 when the whole country shut down because 90% of the women didn't work in the home or the office that day. And it's a very pivotal moment in Icelandic society. And they called it the Women's Day Off, this is what I'm telling you now, because it was effectively a strike, right? When women weren't going to work, paid or unpaid work, and they wanted to call it a strike. But part of the women who didn't feel like in the power of the unions or thought strike sounded very socialist or communist, they said, I don't want to take a strike. I don't believe in going on strike. And so the organizer said, well, why don't we just call it a day off? And people were like, yeah, I can take a day off. That's no problem. And that to me just is a good example of like not getting bogged down in the vocabulary and slightly different ways of defining things and realizing that their objectives were the same, which was to highlight that women were doing important things. And they didn't get caught down in that kind of minutiae, and they could work to compromise. That was not a short answer, was it?
I was about to ask you to put your hands together. Eliza, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and giving us a number of inspiring lessons and words. And thank you for finally coming all the way to Oulu to see me.
Anna said you've been wanting me to come for years, and I was like, this is the first time I've ever been asked to come to Oulu. So we'll have to take that discussion offline.
Maybe I'm not the best marketer.
But I think that we should also put our hands together for Roger and Thora and Anna and all of the people who've put together this amazing conference. You get a much bigger clap.
Thank you, Eliza. Yes.
Wow. It's like the perfect size if you have carry-on luggage, like I do. Thank you. Where should we put these?
Okay. Thanks. All right. Yes, you can. Yeah.
I need this slide. Good afternoon. It is now my utmost pleasure to introduce you to locally and internationally acclaimed sound artist and sound poetess Antje Greiði. And Antje lives actually quite close here to Oulu on the island of Hailuoto, and we invited her to be following the conference and prepare a sound performance for us during the closing ceremony. And now with 2 sonic interventions, in the spirit of this conference, together with all of us, Antje will make a sound sculpture that is informed and inspired by the many conversations and contributions of this conference. Please, Antje. Please welcome Antje.
Thank you so much. It was amazing this week to share space with you and listen to you and learn from you. And I wrote or created some sort of composition I want to do together, citizen science, participatory, and I'm asking you to help me to make this the piece. And these are the simple instructions. It is the Scientist-Citizen Instruction Score. Take out your phone, pad or laptop. Choose an audio stream of your liking, something you maybe just listened to. Podcast, lecture, audiobook, TikTok stream, voice message, Instagram stories, anything you usually like to play, maybe even to distract you or learn something from. Then please pump up the volume of your device. Go loud as possible, and then just lay it down on your lap or on the ground if you want. And don't be shy, just go for it. It will be not audible, your only listening will not be audible. And yes, go, play. Play it really loud, full volume, and then close your eyes for a while and listen. Perfect. Exactly. Thank you. Dissonance training. Inside, outside, insideness, in, out, divide, segregation, in, out, speech, out, reach, in, out, give, take, change, multiplicity of voices, interknitting, weaving, crossing the room, the land like mushrooms, under, over, ground, in, in theory, nice. But in reality, fluid, in motion, wobbly, unstable, multifaceted. The confusion, contradictionary. Our language acoustic landscape, sound, life, co-creation, over, under, ground, soil making. The protocol is under construction. Redefinition. Who belongs to the river? Who participates in cleaning up? Is the river mine or is the river yours? Like the machines. Other machines belonging to us? Or are they just us? Artificial? Or intelligence? Artificial or intelligence, or just us? Multi-specific intelligence in out of scale, hard to comprehend scale. The surface, the particles, for sound to bounce off, waves, manifold, before and after us, the sound before and after us. Structure, listening, a condition of understanding, because before understanding, there's the willingness to allow change, the dissonance of this space, the force of listening.
This 2026 EXA conference was very, very special. And our keynote speaker, Eliza, referred to the importance of children's also in research. And we do have the honor here to welcome the 2026 EXA Conference Children's Delegation. And some of you, many of you, I think even, had the chance to meet them, to talk to them. I filled out your questionnaire and your surveys this morning. It was very, very interesting to chat with you. So it's our very great pleasure to please welcome the Children's Delegation of Children as Researcher on stage together with Rick Hall. And Rick also. So how do you like your week here?
It was good.
Yeah? What was your favorite moment?
Having a snowball fight.
Oh. And how about you? What do we bring to home from this week?
Pardon? Pardon?
What will you bring home from this week?
The snowball fight.
Yeah. Cool. Want to pass on?
The snowball fight as well.
Also, definitely was the best one.
When it finished. For me, crocheting. For me, mine was also crocheting.
The children do have a message for the conference. Perhaps starting at you, Jackson, what would you like to say to our friends here?
Everyone has rights, especially children. Remember that children should have a chance. It's better to have lessons outside. We hope at the next conference we see many more children presenting.
Remember that children can be just as good researchers as adults can.
Our school motto is never settle for less than your best. And we would also like to say a big thanks for Rick because we wouldn't be able to do this without him.
I won't say many more words because I wanted the young people to have the first words, to have the last words, and to speak the most. But we've heard a lot about curiosity being innate and how it is part of our movement of citizen science. And these young people are your future, so please make sure that you listen to them. I would just finally like to thank Tora and Roger and Jan and Anna and the other colleagues in EXA for making us feel so welcome. So thank you. Kiitos.
Now we come to the little bit more grown-up children as well. And it's my pleasure to welcome Clément Mas as one of the delegates of the early career researchers on stage for the closing statement. They had their workshop on the very first day, and it was a wonderful, really fabulous workshop. Lots of discussion. And yeah, there are some very important messages also for us.
Thank you all. I see they are recruiting PhD students earlier and earlier every year, so we might need to revise our definition of early career researcher, but yeah. Indeed, on Monday, we gathered with slightly more grown-up early career researcher. It was about 36 of us, and we joined for a workshop designed by and for early career researchers. The idea was to facilitate connection on the first day of the conference and letting early career researchers express their experiences on citizen science. We had a nice mix of mostly PhD students, but also postdocs, and people coming from social science, humanities, technology, and for once, not too many natural scientists. And during the 3 hours of the workshop, we did round table discussion in small groups, and then a whole room discussion. It got very clear during this workshop that early career researchers are facing major challenges that requires action, support, and solutions. We summarized the participants' idea about those challenges and the solutions into 8 concrete recommendations. That should appear here, yes. That could substantially improve early career capacity to do meaningful and impactful citizen science. Briefly, if we go through, the first and most important was about networking. I think everyone really valued to have this space for networking together, and we wish to have many more at any point of the working group's work as well. It seems that although citizen science started with natural science, now more and more people from humanities and social science and need more support, and the visibility of this project need to be highlighted. Everyone wanted to have more bridges built, so that space to meet, so that we can also collaborate at early career phases already between those disciplines. We are at a stage where we are still learning a lot and having the space and the facilitation for skills development, especially training we are required concerning how to do a citizen science from the scratch to the outreach, how to do community engagement and communication, and especially how to navigate ethical and legal framework. One of the major issues that everyone, I think, raised was about funding, who doesn't have, but especially at early career phases. And so concrete tips really emerge from how we could improve our funding situation so that we can do the best project possible. First, by referencing existing grants. Second, by having EXA, leveraging and joining forces with existing funding institutes to create specific goals dedicated for early career citizen science, and then support diverse funding mechanism, for example, with NGOs, municipalities, or crowdfunding. We are at a stage where connecting with stakeholders is not easy, and we need help, for example, from an early career researcher working group that could use their legitimacy to connect us and bridge us with members of the wider society. It seems also that for everyone, supervision was the key to success in their PhD especially, but too often early career researchers are thrown into a citizen science project with their supervisor not knowing what to expect of citizen science and how much time it's needed. So guidelines, protocols that can help us, but also help the supervisor would be very welcome. Altogether, I think the working groups can really help us on all these issues. A dedicated working group will also be welcome, seeing that there is very specific challenge of early career researchers that many of us have experienced and that are not addressed yet. So today we close EXA 2026, but we open a new path for early career research action. I'm proud to deliver this recommendation in a bit bigger text format to the board of EXA on behalf of all the workshop participants and all the early career researchers that are doing citizen science. Thanks for the organizers for letting us the space to connect and to be able to make this recommendation. And I'm sure they are in good hands with you. So, thank you very much.
part 2.
In resonance with the Rhizome Lounge and everything I've seen about collaboration of citizen science, I was thinking to make another piece of sound together. And it's a very simple instruction. And this is a mycelium score. And the idea is to use a sound of your body. You can, for example, hum or whistle or just use your breath and make a very tiny sound of your body and grow the sound. Go where the sugar is, go where the solution is, go where your curiosity is, go where life is, and just keep growing the sound. And if we all do it together, maybe we can also hear something nice. Shall we try? Maybe 3 minutes? Let's go. This is the sound of our time. Thank you so much. The contribution matters. Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much, Antje, and also a warm thank you to all the other artists who contributed to this conference, namely Kim Moilunen, Rikka Kaivarinen, Kaisa Ristoluoma, Kristi Gross, and also a special thank you to Neil Cahoon, to Erich Berger, to Rebecca Carlson, and to Hui Wing, who curated the Rhizome Art Salon, the film program. It was really, really very valuable contribution. Art not as an add-on, but art running really through the Citizen Science Conference. A very warm thank you from Roger, from me, from Anna, Sana, from all here. Thank you.
I just tell you that I was originally going to start this closing talk with a minute of awkward silence, but given that we're running a bit tight for time, no. In keeping with our promise at the beginning of the conference, and in line with Finnish cultural expectations, we will try to keep this as awkward as possible. A few days, Thora and I welcomed you here to Oulu with a certain amount of surprise that so many of you had actually decided to come. We promised you snow at the right moment. We promised you ample sunshine. I think that what has happened here actually over the past few days has had nothing to do with the weather, has nothing to do with the sauna temperature. At the opening, we mentioned the importance of coming together in person, physically, in classrooms, on sofas, about the quiet radicalism of sharing space in a world where so many professional and private lives play out on small and big screens. And over the past few days, I think we've seen exactly how important that is and why that matters. We've seen friendships forming, disagreements unfolding, ideas shifting, perspectives expanding. And hopefully you have experienced some of those awkward Finnish silences as well. I think that what we've seen has been a community growing, a community in motion. And so on behalf of all of us who've had the privilege of organizing this conference, I want to state again how grateful we are, not just that you actually came here to Oulu, but that you contributed your words, your smiles, your curiosity, your critiques, and your thanks. And Thora and I and Anna and Sana and many of our colleagues at Noman IT and on the local committee have received over the past days so many very real, very warm words of thanks, of gratitude and admiration on the organizing of this conference. And I can't underestimate the power of those words in what is often a very thankless job. You know, putting on events, organizing things, you know, and I think you also contributed so much to the energy of this place. We saw it last night in the karaoke room, on the dance floor, in front of all of these lovely white and green latex biodegradable balloons. The European citizen science community is stronger because you were here, and our Oulu research community is also stronger because you gave us the opportunity to share with you some of what makes us tick and some of what makes us stay here in this weird, cold, cool city. I did not do a count of the many, 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 many emojis that are in our many different group chats for the conference. But there are a lot. I mean, I would go so far as to say thousands over the past 2 years. The emojis are mostly pink hearts with little arrows through them, sometimes small hands clapped together, sometimes 100% written in red. I myself, I'm not a digital native, but I'm a little bit late to the emoji game. Indeed, sometimes I still use emoticons because I can't find the right emoji button. But I've come to see that these little signs of acknowledgement and gratitude are so, so important. And they've taught me the importance of communicating these small, constant gestures of appreciation, even when there's no time to write a full message. They say, I see you, I appreciate you, I thank you for working with me. And yes, we are all going to end up implicated in a massive murder-suicide situation if we have to be part of another Zoom meeting together, but for now, we're surviving. So what we would like to do now is translate a few thousand emojis into actual words of thanks. So now, for what we think is the most important part of the conference.
Our sincere thanks go to all the speakers,
Session organizers,
workshop conveners,
security staff,
artists and makers,
filmmakers and discussants,
poets and bioblitzers,
ice fishers and reindeer herders.
and our fabulous conference program committee. If we have here had not only a very creative, a very fun conference, we had a conference of very high scientific standard, and that was thanks to the program committee. We received well over 100 proposals for sessions, and our program committee curated a wonderful program. So we would like to now call on stage and thank very much Elise Lippi. She is leading, or was leading the program committee, but she's in Helsinki now, and we cross fingers for her daughter. She's in competition for swimming right now. So please, maybe Rosa, if Rosa, you are here with us, please come forward. Rosa Arias and Egle, if Egle, you're here, please come forward. Also Heidi, if you're here, and Mickey, Moki.
Susanna, Thora, Miki, Yoni, Barbara, Gita, Roger, Rainier, Taru, Gaston, Dorta.
And yeah, let's continue because there are many others, and the EXA committee. And so Yoni and Gaston, we invite you to go back to the audience because, and you three, please stay, because we would like to invite now also Crisanti, please come forward. Then Dirt is already here, Paul as well.
Chrysanthis, Dorta, and Paul. I think that we can safely say that there is not any team of people that we would rather have weekly Zoom meetings for the rest of our lives with. So thank you for those. Sometimes twice weekly, actually.
Yeah, thank you so much for the trust also that you put in us.
Okay. So when we bid on this conference a couple of years ago, it was around the time that we were organizing another conference on environmental history. And it was a slightly bigger conference, over 1,000 people. And Nomad IT, the Nomad IT team was here basically doing all of the real hard work to put this together. And I think I mentioned to Trinu, it was in the office or maybe kind of in a car one night, hey, we're thinking of organizing another conference in a year or two. You know, what do you guys think about maybe helping out to run that? And I think Trina's words were something like, let's talk about it. But it is safe to say that I certainly never would have agreed to do this if I didn't know that you guys could be here, because you're the ones who actually know what you're doing when it comes to setting things up, anticipating numbers, deciding on how panels should sit, worrying about which wire is there, which wire isn't. It would have been completely impossible with you guys. So we are here really because you are here. So thank you very much. So we'd like you to come on stage. Trino, Jan, Carlotta, Morgan, Fionola, Sebastian, Christian, and the lovely Lule. Trina, remind me to let you know about another conference we're thinking of hosting in a couple of years.
Bravo, bravo.
So as I said, I think in the opening, Thora and I are chairs. Anna and Sanna and Kunul until last year have been the tables, but sort of putting these things on, you sort of put on a nice face, and you make things look like they were meant to happen that way. And indeed, during Eliza's extremely captivating talk and Q&A, you saw at some point I picked up my iPad. That was to sort of help put out 18 fires going on in different parts of the city and university. But the only reason I think that Thor and I were able to basically survive through this whole thing is that we were working with several extremely competent, extremely loving, extremely smart, extremely insightful, and extremely joyous, if I can use that term, to work with people. One of them is here right now, Anna Heumann, who has been our kind of lead conference liaison organizer for 6-7 months, since May of last year, actually, wasn't it? August. Feels like May. Anna, smiles when things are maybe not going very well, makes you feel like your opinion counts, even when it's a really dumb opinion. Does it in the best way possible, and almost makes us, I think, want to organize another conference at some point. I'd say almost.
But only today.
But yeah, Anna, thank you so much for being here with us, and they all thank you as well. So.
And we also would like to send Kunul, who was working with us until May 2026, and Sana, who's already in Valkia presenting and preparing the Citizen Science Festival. So warm applause also for Kunul and for Sana.
We are now going to attempt something we've never done before, which is to connect via the internet, I think it's called, via live simulcast streaming encrypted connectivity to basically 5 kilometers south of here, where Sana Degampur, who is the second person here that we'd like to thank is basically setting up the Citizen Science Festival right now in downtown Oulu. We wanted her to be here, but she said she can't be here because she has to actually be working. So we are going to maybe make something up while we find the Zoom link. And but Sana we brought on in December, a couple months ago, in part because the conference was just getting really big. Originally we had, I think, bid on 350 people, and it sort of basically doubled in size. And we realized that we just needed more people. And as we needed more people and started to find more people, we realized that we actually needed someone who knew how to manage those people and sort of tell them what to do and teach them and sort of lead them and guide them and inspire them. And Sana came on. She's currently a master's student in education for global futures here at the University of Oulu. And we hired her even without seeing her CV because we had given a talk to, we had gone around to different courses to try and encourage volunteers to join. And I gave a talk one day, showed a PowerPoint and tried to encourage people to sign up. And after the talk, Sana kind of came up to me, tapped me on my shoulder and said, that was really interesting. Can I just give you a few pointers on how you might want to make that better for the next class that you go to? And I listened to her. They were really good points. And I walked away thinking, actually, I know someone who we could hire to maybe sort of lead all these volunteers, and we had dozens and dozens of volunteers. And Sana basically found them, encouraged them, streamed them. There she is. There she is.
We're trying to get things ready for everyone to come. It's not only me, we're here with some very helpful volunteers. Here we have Ari. This is the stage area. The projects are coming. I know a lot of the projects are already there, but we're waiting for you. Everything is set up, all the chairs, all the tables, everything is ready for you to come. So please be here as soon as possible. We're waiting. Get on the first bus and come after the closing ceremony. We'll see you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sana. We just wanted to tell you how extremely grateful we were. She is replicating into the future. For just, taking initiative and getting things done, and also telling us, showing us when no really means no, and when yes means maybe. It's been a pleasure to have you, so thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a little something for you that you'll receive in about an hour.
What?
No. I said no. That was actual live video. Oh no, we have to go. Eliza, I think we have to go through all of your slides. No, how do
the other way around, right?
No, just go.
It's a local committee.
Thank God this wasn't a hybrid conference, because we would have totally failed.
But we are still here.
Eliza, we are actually scrolling through all of your slides. How many were there?
Okay. There we go. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, slides can go onto the screen now. Oh no.
Never mind. Okei.
Harri, jos voit laittaa ne diat tuo päälle, ei tässä näky mitään. It's a nice awkward silence found its way into our talk.
There we are.
Okay, the local organizing committee at a conference typically is the group of people on site in the host venue who put together lots of activities and events, and I think we can safely say that they put on a fascinating diversity of art rooms and reindeer farm tours and sort of Arctic dinners.
Ice fishing.
Ice fishing, things that hopefully you wouldn't really be able to find back home. And indeed, most of those events were extremely full. So we're very grateful to you for signing up for those things. And the local committee basically is charged with showing all of you a good time, basically showing how amazing Oulu can be, even if just for a couple of days. So we would like to thank all of you and invite those of you who are here in the room, although I know that some of you are currently running things that are ongoing, but I will still read out your names one by one and invite you to come on the stage, and at least one of you must be in the audience. Carolina, Erich, Mikita, Mirella, Mario, Clement, Weiying, Neil, Paulina, Alexandra, Celia, Kunul, Monica, Rebecca, Oli, and Angelica.
And during the week, you met many, many helpful people, smiling faces, and this is thanks to our amazing volunteers. A big, big, big thank you. Not only were they always very, very early here, helping you set up your session, but they also actually contributed with a lot of interest, a lot of passion, a lot of commitment. So we would like to, if you're in the room, I see 2 of you are over there. There may be others. Many are already in Valkia, but please come up front so that we can celebrate you. Thank you very, very much, and give a warm applause to our volunteers.
Archie, Aya, Amy, Anna, Annie, Ariadna, Bach, Chengchi, Chloe, David, Debbie, Fajr, Fatima, Gonzalo, Jennifer, Yerke, Jessie, Caitlin, Katya, Luisa, Mauhong, Mingming, Mir Arafat, Nelson, Nusrat, Ronya, Sana, Samira, San, Sartak, Iri, Shimul, Sveta, Sophie, Shubetsta, Usama, Yamping, Yomal, and Zoe. So obviously the volunteers donated their time. Some of them also received, That's okay. Some of them also received ECTS for a course that we ran alongside their volunteering work. We had a sort of small course on citizen science practice for them, and hope that they take away some wonderful memories, but also some experience and, what do they call it now, transferable skills that we are increasingly needing to sort of learn to deploy and recognize.
And thank you finally, very warmly, to all the security and the facility staff of the University of Oulu who prepared all these rooms, like bringing in more than 500 chairs, getting them out for the poster session. It's really, really a lot of work. So warm thank you to those wonderful people as well. Thank you, Tina, Kai, and Krista. Thank you.
And then finally, just to thank the guys up in the booth, Harry and his team, who've done an amazing job streaming, making us sound good, making us look lit, and sending out EXA to the world.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, as it is the custom in a closing ceremony, we now proceed to the medal winners of this year's 2026 6 EXA competitions. We start with the ice fishing competition.
Should we go now?
And I would like to call on stage our head jury, which is Mikita Peregrim and also Olli Hennenpää. Both of you prepared, curated, did all the parkour for the competitors. So please come on stage as we will give in and award now the medalists. These medals will be given by our most experienced ice fishers, Joni and Petteri, if you can also come on stage if you're here. So this will be the silver medal, la médaille d'argent, for the most fishes catched. 2. To perch. The medal is awarded to Justin Whistle, University of Malta. The gold medal, la médaille d'or, is awarded for the biggest fish, a perch, 100 grams. And it goes to Cristina Marizzi. Where is he? Yes. The next competition, and you can go back to the audience. The next competition is the BioBlitz of EXA, and we will announce the 2 winners for the BioBlitz. So the silver medal, médaille d'argent, for the most observations goes to somebody identified Jonams, who observed 46 species. Jonams, if you're here, then no, but then. And the gold medal, La Médaille d'Or, goes to Margaret Hirf. If Margaret is here, please come on stage. Bravo. It was our photographer, Petra. And now, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, the most awaited award is the Showcase Pitch winner. And the jury of the Showcase Pitch winner were you all. And here are the winners. Best Showcase Pitch goes to Signs of Spring by
Michael McGee, Natural History Museum, Denmark.
the most creative showcase pitch goes to...
Die zweite? Diese. Bridging Local Knowledges and Digital Twins for Resilient Water Management by Anna Mandorle and Ariana Macedo.
And now, the medal for the most impactful show pitch goes to...
And this is the one that we needed sort of legal and police advice about whether we could actually award this. Mainstreaming Citizen Science by Crisanti Barictari, Carolina Doran, Beatriz Ortega, Franziska Schlesmann from EXA. This last award is in part somewhat humorous because the idea for the showcase pitch, as I think I mentioned during the pitch, had never happened at a prior EXA conference, and it was Crisanti's sort of brainchild in part, as was the award that is being handed out. So, but it's not a fix. We're honest here. Thank you all. There wasn't we were wondering whether we should make an award for the best poem created in the cutout poetry, but given that many of the really, really good poems were actually anonymous, we didn't feel like it would make sense to award something to someone who didn't want their name associated with their poem. Yeah, you are, all of you who did that. I don't know how many poems we had in the end. I wrote 2, they weren't very good, but you guys are all winners, so thank you for contributing to that wonderful, wonderful event that Monica Vasila had conceptualized.
And of course...
Thank you to all you participants.
For bringing your curiosity.
Openness.
And energy to Oulu.
We don't have parting gifts for all of you.
But we hope you have taken many photographs.
Captured many minds.
Written new memories.
Come up with many stories.
New ideas.
New collaborations.
New friendships.
New situationships.
And many, many warm, cool
stories of your time
in the Arctic.
Actually, yeah, you can go. So we say here now, thank you and goodbye from Oulu, but don't leave. We're not done. We want to welcome you in 2 years to the next EXA conference.
No. We can't tell them.
Why not? They have to buy their train tickets. They need to start practicing their karaoke songs.
But wait, why don't we give them another awkward finish moment of tension and guessing, smelling, listening?
Okay. Can we add some electronic dance music to that as well?
Yeah, okay. Good plan.
Okay, let's do that. So, goodbye from Oulu and hello from... You ready to dance? You think we're actually going to tell you where it is? Where's the music? Where's the music? Harri, onko joku musiikka, joka pitäisi soittaa nyt? Eikö se ole mitään? Onko se tällä puolella? Niin. Okay. Does anyone know where a volume control is on a laptop?
There. And first of all, you need to put. That's why you had it on there. Just a minute. Yep. Now you're okay.
Should be fine now.
Okay, should we do it again? We do it again.
Yeah, we do it again.
We do it again.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, from where?
From here.
Okay, welcome in 2 years to the next EXA conference in...
No, wait. You can't tell them that.
Oh, but why not? They have to tickets and practice to karaoke song.
But no, we should have another awkward finish moment of tension and silence.
Oh yeah, guessing and electronic dance music. Okay. Okay, good plan. Let's do that. Goodbye from Oulu and hello from...
From...
How do I go to the next slide?
Not moving.
Still not working?
Okay, it's fine. It's good. There's no sound. It's good. Okay, trivia, quiz. Here we go. How to play. Read each question. Each question has one answer. A word cloud, not a word cloud, will form over there. And at the end, we will all be winners. What was it? Oh, no, it's right there. Right there. Okay. Okay, QR code. Get out your devices. Scan the QR code. You'll go to Mentimeter. And after each question, you'll write a guess for a city. Okay, now here comes the EDM that we thought was on the first slide. Are you ready to dance? Yes?
Yes? No? Yes? Yes.
Okay.
Go.
When do I go? Is it automatic?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, because they're doing it.
Barcelona.
Oh, yeah, it's automatic. Can we get the dance? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they were all guessing just how long on each one. This one might be the giveaway. And the city is...
Thank you so much. We prepared a small speech, very short, okay? Just a few minutes, and it will work. Oh, okay. Oh, they didn't print it. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, first of all, thank you very much. I would like, in a personal note, to apologize for how many lies I said during this conference, saying that it was in Madrid, telling everybody, oh, Lisbon, never, never, never. It will not happen there. But it is a pleasure for us, I think, to have it, right? To have this conference in Lisbon, in Portugal, with all the Portuguese. We'll have a great team. It is a joint adventure from the Portuguese Citizen Science Network with Núcleo. So we have a huge team with the support of the University of Lisbon, the Municipality of Lisbon, Municipality of Oeiras. So I think we are all prepared for a big moment. We are going from, expectedly, from the coolest EXA ever to the warmest EXA ever, if not the warmest, because we never, and now you need to go, Rick, okay? Because you asked for warmth for the next conference, so you'll have it. We never know if it's warm or not. We hope it's bright with all the presence of all of you. We thank EXA to give us credit on this. We expect to be on the level of organizing this. We are going from a high level. That was this conference in Oulu. Congratulations for the organization. Talking here is myself, I'm not a high person, but well, we're going a little bit shorter, but everybody else is big and everybody's big. So, and we'll have a great team, and we hope to see you. It will be a long journey, 2 years, working together with EXA, with all the team, and with all of you in providing feedback. We expect to have the feedback from this conference also and to improve as much as possible. And I don't know, do you want to say something? Yes. So Nucleo, Priscilla will say something else. Oh, just one more thing. The theme, no, that's why we brought the flowers. So the theme will have the word democracy in it. We didn't have carnations, pink carnations, but we brought roses, which is a symbol of democracy in Portugal. So that is symbolic, but that's what we also wanted to bring. And now I will pass to Priscilla to also say some words. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think Christina said it all. It's a big challenge. I'm super scared, but it's a good type of scared. I think Roger and everyone here that organized this conference did a wonderful job, so thank you. Now I have to follow up on that. I just wanted to say somebody in this audience once told me that citizen science people are always good people. And I couldn't agree more, and here in this event, every single person I have spoken with shows that they want to turn this world into a better place. And I think that citizen science is all about this, so it couldn't be a greatest pleasure to organize such a conference and receive, I hope, all of you in Portugal, in Lisbon. And I also want to thank all of these children in blue. You did an amazing work. I know that people think that the world will be yours in the future, but the world is yours now, okay? Also yours now. And we hear your requests, and I will request this to everyone as well. Bring students. Okay, this is working. Bring students with you, and they can do research just as good as any of us. So for sure, we will have many more children. Yeah.
I'm giving you this back, okay? Your speech? Okay, it's done. Oh, thank you. Obrigada. Obrigada. Oh, yeah.
That was our awkward moment for you. What more can I say? I think so many nice words have been said. Thank you also, Roger. This is emotional for me because actually this conference exceeded my expectations on so many levels. And maybe only two thank yous that I want to say. This is all two persons without whom this conference couldn't have happened. And I want to start with Roger and Thora. Roger, everything that you said about the conference organization, about the past 2 years, about the worms, was correct. And I think I'm also speaking in the name of Chrysanthi and Paul, that it was such a pleasure to work with all of you, with the OLU team, with the Novat IT team. It has been really a great experience. And also during this conference, we have seen so many creativity, all the arty interventions, so many things where we all could see that the conference was organized with a lot of love. And this is also, I think, one reason why there was so much, until now, positive feedback. Thank you so much. There's another thank you, and this goes to all of you, to all participants, because without you, this conference would not have happened. And I think it's amazing to see all of you here, the discussions, the talks, the sessions, everything that had happened during this conference. Thanks a lot for coming here and for being part of this conference and for making the conference what it was. Thank you. And last, we had one big aim that was that every one of you can extend their networks during the conference. So I would like to ask you, whoever did make a new connection, a new friend, please stand up. Thanks a lot. So, mission completed. And then I will hand over now to the executive board to say a few more words.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I want to share an awkward moment that almost happened during the conference. I was queuing for the good coffee because I really badly needed it. And I thought, like, okay, I've spoken to so many people today, I really feel like I can't anymore. Then I turned around and looked into that lovely face, and I thought, like, okay, I have to say something. So I said, oh, so how was your day? I mean, the dumbest thing to say, right? I mean, just, oh, okay, but anyway. And that participant looked at me and she went, you know what? I'm a few years into my academic career now, and I've come to this conference, and it's my first EXA conference. And I feel like finally I found my home. And I think this is so beautiful, and this is really what makes my heart bump with you as the citizen science community, because you are so special on so many levels. And seeing this community come together in such an amazing place, facilitated by so many thoughts, hands, emails, emojis, whatever, it's just really amazing. And it doesn't, titles do not necessarily count in this community, and I think that's great. But expertise, dedication, like the willingness to get connected and to make a difference and to take on some responsibility, also something that, Eliza, you have laid out in your keynote as well so beautifully, that even in very, very small things, each and every one of you takes up some task and aims at, making some things better and creating that connection. So thanks for being such a great home to so many people.
Do that. Yes. Okay. So I hope that it can be projected. So to kind of finish the, can this project, or do I need to drag it to the extra screen or duplicate the screen?
Oh, this one. Yeah. Yes, we can.
Yeah, I just need to do. Yeah. Yeah, it's already open. Yeah.
No. Can we get, Ari, can we get that on screen?
That's okay. Exactly, awkwardness. That's what we need. So now to kind of close with a bit of artistic performance, I have a suggestion for everyone. Like you heard at the beginning, the shouting of the Finnish constitution. How about shouting the 10 principles of citizen science? Now, you have a choice. You can do it in English, but because it's translated to Finnish, we can do it in Finnish. It doesn't show on the screen, but that doesn't matter. Oh, it does? No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Not yet.
It's fine. Yeah, so I know you're already feeling awkward, and that was the purpose of it. I want to actually make us shout, because that's make us into a cult. And anyway, as you've seen from the early career researchers, we will need to kind of start thinking about them again and explain them and kind of have a discussion. So thank you for everyone. It doesn't explain, but it doesn't matter. The trick didn't work. That's okay. So thank you for everything that this conference do, and I can't add more than Dorte and Susan. And have a great journey home. It's now showing. Anyone want to shout it? Just the first one. Yes? Okay, come to the stage. Anyone, like proper performance, anyone who want to shout the first one? You don't need to do anything other than the first one. Come to the stage. And because I'll join the shouting. Okay.
Use your big voice.
I'm ready to use my big voice.
You'll probably need to stand back because it's the blue things. Okay, it's the blue text.
Can we face that way?
Yeah, you can face. You have to face this way, just to make it super awkward, like super. Ready? Okay, 1, 2, go! Citizen Science Project actively involves citizens in... Just for fun, put the Finnish one. There is the Finnish one in the folder. Yeah. In the folder. Okay, that's it. Let's finish. Let's finish.
Let's finish.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
That's
so
brilliant.
much.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Buses.
Yeah. Outside are buses. They will depart. You have some time to collect bags and jackets. For those of you that have bags and jackets, get on the bus and it will take you down to the Citizen Science Festival in downtown Oulu.
Now.
Buses will depart over the next 10 to 15 minutes, but get out there because things are starting.